A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome in to One Giant Step, an Independence Day week version of One Giant Step. I'm Shaun Morash, he's Bryce Gelman, and we have Giants news. Unbelievable. Usually not a good thing when you get news in the football world on the 4th of July. But let me first by saying thank you. Welcome on in to One Giant Step. There might be some of you clicking that play button right now to hear our reaction to a Giants shocking trade of sorts, and you're about to get that. So if you're here for that, stick with us. There might be some of you clicking that button going, hold on, I'm a long-time listener. I listened last week. And now I'm not getting what I was promised, which was our rankings of 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. The Giants we expect to be the best Giants by the end of the year. All right, so here's how this goes. This is live radio. This is reactionary radio. This is summertime football podcasting. All right? There's a reason one of these podcasts comes out every week and not 2 or 3 like we do in season or doing the heavy parts of the off season. It's because, look, let's be honest. This is the deadest time. So last week we ranked 1 through 5, not the current, but who we expect to be the top 5 Giants that we say, no doubt about it, by the end of the year. And Bryce had a big tease. So again, we're going to do that next week on next week's pod because we have news. So without further ado, that news. Let's get on into it, Bryce. I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman. Roll it around. Unbelievably, me and Bryce planned on recording this on Tuesday, July 1st, which is the time we're recording this. We planned on recording this at around 1 p.m. Eastern time. And around 11 a.m. Eastern time, we got the news, Tom Pelissero confirming Darren Waller is coming out of retirement and the Giants are trading him to the Miami Dolphins. The Giants will get a 6th-round pick. Art Stapleton, I just read his tweet a little while ago. There are no conditions on that. There is conditions on the 7th that the Giants are giving up as part of this. But essentially, whatever those end up being, the Giants are going to move up a late round, and they get something back for a guy that we thought was long gone, retired, and that the Giants basically would just own the rights from here to eternity. But Darren Waller coming out of retirement, and the Giants getting a 6th-rounder. So it's actually, believe it or not, there's a couple layers I want to get to with Bryce with this. But Bryce, just give me your initial reaction to the Giants trading Darren Waller and knowing he's going to play football again.
What?
That's a good reaction.
I mean, this is what, like, this is like a few minutes before or after the Dame news, and I saw that. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you read Giannis is pissed too. You see a lot of stuff going on. And then the biggest news in that 30-minute span is Darren Waller is back playing football. Congratulations to him. And congratulations to the Dolphins as well. I don't know how good he's going to be after a year off. Maybe he was training. I'm sure he still was. I don't know how that works with guys who think they're retiring. Maybe he was planning something and, like Colin Kaepernick situation, like constantly training, expecting to get another chance in a different situation. But I don't know how good of a player he's going to be, but the Dolphins clearly needed tight end help. Their depth chart is terrible. It was terrible. At least Julian Hill is their backup. Now is going to be their backup tight end, was their starting tight end. They were looking, I'm sure, all around the NFL. This is by far the best option, I'm sure, for them because they only had to give up a 6th-round pick to the Giants next season. So good for them. Congratulations.
Yeah, so just quickly, I know we're One Giant Step. We're not One Giant Swim with the Miami Dolphins here and whatever podcast they're churning out. They trade Jonnu Smith as like an extension of the Fitzpatrick-Ramsey deal, which I actually thought was a good deal for Miami to dump out of aging Jalen Ramsey and bring back Minka Fitzpatrick. They probably should have figured out a deal with and not gotten rid of to begin with. But when you dump Jonnu Smith, you need help at tight end. Look, I don't have high hopes for the Miami Dolphins. I know it's a Giants podcast. I kind of think that this feels like a bottoming out type of season where Tua, again, you hope he's healthy, but probably isn't healthy, and they're looking to draft their next quarterback next year, and it's very sad for Tua, but it kind of feels like it's going that way. But I have to think when they tack on Jonnu Smith and a day later pull up this Darren Waller trade, I don't think that this was some kind of surprise to them that Darren Waller was coming out of retirement. My guess is
for the Giants or for the Dolphins?
I think for all parties involved, which also just I'll talk about what that means for the Giants in a second. But when they trade Jonnu Smith yesterday, my guess is this was going down the road of maybe Darren Waller and his agents were talking about coming out of retirement. He's trying to have this rap career. Maybe he wanted to go to Miami, and that was the kind of place where he thought, it could take off, whatever. And everything was dead and buried here with the Giants. So if that's the case, that's where I'm going. Number one, bravo to the New York Giants. Granted, a lot of people taking a vacation week here, dead time. There was 0 leaks that came out of the Giants. No beat reporter had, hey, hearing Darren Waller's thinking about coming out. Giants might be able to pull off a trade here. Like, we were all shocked. There were no leaks at all, which I think is a good sign coming out of the Giants.
To be fair, I texted you about a month and a half before Darren Waller retired, and I told you that's what I've heard, and no one knew until right before. So
yeah. And maybe Waller like blindsided the Giants a little bit and like came to them and said, look, I have a team that's willing to take me out of retirement. The Giants said, I mean, that's possible. For sure. I have no doubts that Waller probably orchestrated something with Miami as well. But my guess is the Giants didn't wake up today surprised that Darren Waller was on his way to Miami when the deal finally gets done. So that's the first part of this. The second part of this is I'm going to clap it up for Joe Schoen here because as far as we were concerned, Darren Waller was just gone. He retired. It ended up kind of being a failure of trades of sorts because – it just didn't work out. He retires a year into his contract. He again got hurt with the Giants. And albeit you didn't get the return on the investment that you traded for him, but to still come out of this with something. Now you might be saying, Shaun, it's a 6th-round pick. What are we talking about? Okay, well then hold that same passion when you're screaming and yelling at the trade deadline that they should trade their 3rd or 4th pass rusher for a 6th-round pick. And when they don't, you yell, oh, it's something. They got something here out of Darren Waller. And you know what's funny? I kind of think in a weird way, Bryce, as I say this out loud, when we were angry about not trading like an Azeez Ojulari at the deadline this year, this kind of makes up for it a little bit because this is probably the return you would have got. So out of nowhere.
Could have gotten both. You could have gotten 2 second-round picks. What are you saying?
Look, I get it. And look, a 6th-round pick could become anything, right? It could become a whole bunch of nothing. Or it becomes, your next starting tight end down the line or whatever. So, yeah, it's not like they got a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick. But I just think getting anything out of a guy that was a long-distant memory that you own the rights to, I think is a major win in the Giants world.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I better than nothing. Like,
definitely.
That's
the hashtag.
Stay in retirement forever. He stays in retirement. You don't get anything. He decides to come back. You swap a 7th-round pick, conditional 7th-round pick for real 6th-round pick.
Here's the next part. I'll do this because I obviously, as we all do, right? You do this with the Knicks. I'm sure you do this with the Giants. We do it with all the teams we like, right? You have like your inner circle of people you talk to when something goes down. You get their immediate reactions, right? For me, my go-to is the guy that taught me all about the teams I love and everything. That's my father, okay? And my dad, who, just workshops the text, I know that he's like a Joe Beningo. He would have been like 4 hours behind this news. So I text him the news, hey, traded Darren Waller. And he comes back with, F him, basically. Hope he sucks in Miami. And, that's the reaction out of him. And I'm curious, Bryce, I have no ill will towards Darren Waller at all.
None.
Look, it would have been very easy for him to kind of have his heart half in it last year and try to collect a paycheck last year instead of retiring and just kind of nurse injuries and waste Giants cap space, all while being, just a complete waste of time. He didn't do that. Now, I didn't like that he kind of dragged on his retirement decision.
Yeah, he retired after the draft.
They also took Theo Johnson in the 4th round, and what we all saw in Hard Knocks with what they felt about Theo Johnson made me feel better that they kind of knew it was coming and they targeted him as a starting tight end. I personally don't have ill will towards Darren Waller. I'm getting the vibe you don't either.
No, I mean, whatever. It is what it is.
Okay.
Now, he was okay. He wasn't amazing. Yeah. Obviously, underwhelming based on what the expectations were when he originally came in. Who was throwing him the ball, though?
Exactly. Okay, great. You set me up perfectly, Bryce. Our chemistry's clicking here. Now I have other disagreements with people about like, this is just another reminder of the failure that is Joe Schoen. I got that from a buddy today. And we've all been over the failures of Joe Schoen before. The Darren Waller trade did not work out. If you want to put the word failure on it, okay, you put the word failure on it. But Bryce, to me, coming off the year 2022 and what that playoff year meant, and we all know the ramifications, right? You sign Daniel Jones, you tag Saquon Barkley. Like in the end, going to the playoffs and winning a playoff year set this organization back a couple of years. It did. I mean, no way around it because of the quarterback. But if you were going to sign Daniel Jones, the Giants needed to come out of that offseason with some sort of weapon of sorts. And they took the 3rd and whatever it was, 5th or 6th, I'm forgetting at this point, that they got for Kadarius Toney in that deal and flipped it around and traded for Darren Waller. Yes, the deal didn't work out. Yes, Darren Waller got hurt. We all know Daniel Jones stunk in 2023. Eventually got hurt in 20. That year was an unmitigated disaster. But as much as it was a failure, I'm not going to now, again, 3 years later, as the Giants trade a retired Darren Waller for a 6th-round pick and be told, why are you praising Joe Schoen for getting a 6th-round pick? I'm praising Joe Schoen because at least you turned a retired dead asset essentially into something. Yeah, Joe Schoen failed at taking a swing at Darren Waller. He didn't give up a 1st-round pick for him. He didn't give up a 2nd-round pick for him. And in the end, all he was doing was, after they signed Daniel Jones, trying to give him the best possible available weapon that they could, and he took a swing on it. He missed. Sometimes you miss on swings. I think of all the Joe Schoen failures, from Evan Neal to Josh Azudu and on and on and on and on we go, I don't view Darren Waller in that same light.
It doesn't even rank on the top 10.
Thank you. But I'm being told today by some of my Giants brethren, like, again, it was better to keep Darren Waller retired because you forget about how big a failure that was. I didn't view it as that big a failure. I viewed it as a completely worth the risk based on what they gave up. Like, and if Darren Waller clicked and Daniel Jones did take that next step, which we all know he didn't, that would have been viewed as a massive success. But it was a good calculated risk trade at the time.
Yeah, it's a win. He retired and then unretired, and you got something out of it. You didn't have anything when he retired the first time. It's not like you gave up so much to the point where you needed to resign him. You needed to convince him to continue playing football. They effed up. They realized that. They let him retire. Like, all right, go ahead. Fine. And then the second he wants to come back, they end up getting something out of it.
Right.
Again, it's better than nothing.
Right. And now, as we sit here, Bryce, we're reacting to the news because we didn't even know it was coming that Waller was traded. But if I were to tell you a week ago, hey, I'm hearing Darren Waller is going to come out of retirement without knowing trade was in place, would your reaction have been excitement because you want to see what Darren Waller is with Russell Wilson / Jackson Dart and Malik Neighbors? Or would you have said, he's coming out of retirement? Man, I kind of like the direction of this team without an oft-injured Darren Waller. We got to find a way to move him. What do you think you would have said?
I want to see Theo Johnson. I want him to get a chance to play.
I do too.
As many reps as humanly possible. What is Darren Waller going to give a rebuilding team? Say whatever you want about how good the defense is and how dominant they could be throughout the season. It's a rebuilding team. We know what the schedule looks like. We know what the expectations are. We know what the over-under is. 5.5 games. I just, why would you want that guy back if he's just going to be taking up space for a young player that you're really high on in Theo Johnson?
I'm with you.
What about you? You probably did the same thing.
I'm with you. I'm not going to lie, because there's still that inner fan in me that wants like the best possible team. I think I would have had a moment or two where I went, ooh, well, this is intriguing. We didn't get to see Darren Waller with Malik Neighbors. But then I think I would have taken a cold shower, walked out and said, he's a year removed from retirement. He's always hurt. You drafted Theo Johnson. Is it really worth stunting his development for what? You're not going to go win a Super Bowl this year anyway, even if I think there's a chance they could surprise and make the play. Like, to me, it goes backwards. So I don't have ill will towards it. I'm happy they got something for it. And fair to say, Bryce, because I think you won't even come up with another one, this is the most stunning Giants news on this specific week since JPP's finger incident with the fireworks. I think it is, because usually you get no news out of this week.
I'm not like taking note in my notes of what happened the week of July 4th.
Well, I'm just saying this is a week a lot of, the beat reporters. This is the NHL and NBA's week to do all their free agency moves and Major League Baseball playing. Like, this is a week everybody winds down in the NFL. Like, Tom Pelissero was probably in a lazy river somewhere when he got that alert. He's like, oh my God, I got to tweet something. So we never get news that week. So it is kind of stunning, which is why we prep to do 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on our countdown of the Giants we expect to be the best Giants by the end of the year. Okay, now there's more news. Jordan Renan tweeted earlier today on Tuesday. Again, we're taping this Tuesday, July 1st. So whenever you're listening to One Giant Step, we appreciate it. Odell Beckham to the Giants, not happening. Now, you might be totally out of sync with the Giants offseason the last couple of weeks. Why is that even a thing? Odell Beckham Jr. was back in New York, I guess last weekend, 2 weekends ago now, with Fanatics Fest. Then took his child outside MetLife Stadium and took this, perfect photo looking at MetLife Stadium with his kid, and there were rumblings. Odell was on panels at Fanatics Fest saying he would love, call Joe, would love to come back and play for the Giants. Let me just say this. Thank goodness the rumors are being shot down. I love Odell Beckham Jr.'s Giants tenure. Hate how it ended. More okay with how it ended when you look years later that Dexter Lawrence is the result of that Odell Beckham Jr. trade. Like, the Giants worked out pretty damn good. They probably got the best defensive tackle in franchise history. And if I were to ask you, better Giant all time, Odell Beckham Jr. or Dexter Lawrence? It's Dexter Lawrence. So It all worked out. Odell Beckham, I feel very bad about the injuries he's had in his career, and he's bounced around. He turned out okay, although he ended up ripping up his knee in a Super Bowl. He did win a Super Bowl and was very productive for the Rams there in that spot. So his career is going to fall short of the Hall of Fame, which sucks because it felt like he was on a trajectory. I'm not kidding, to be like Jerry Rice. Like, that is how good Odell Beckham Jr. was in his Giants tenure. I know it's crazy to think about now, but
predict anyone's longevity.
No. But the point is, dude, he was that special a talent at the wide receiver position. I mean, the Giants had between him, it was him and Antonio Brown at the time. Those are the two top. It's funny to put those two together. I mean, two completely different characters. But
Calvin Johnson.
Calvin retired
Retired
before Odell.
When did he retire?
I think the year he was drafted, Odell. 2013.
We're doing live.
Live
research. Calvin Johnson. You might be. I think I'm going to say 2016 is when he. 2015. Yeah. So that was before. Well, no. Odell. That catch was in 2014. So he was still in the league.
Yeah, but again, but still, the bulk of his Giant career. I remember having these debates. It was Antonio Brown versus Odell. It's so long gone. And Odell, I'm not saying he doesn't have a place in the league as a third wide receiver, but if you're the New York Giants, you just signed Darius Slayton. You have Wan'Dale as your slot. You want to tell me you'd rather him in the slot than Wan'Dale? Like, I guess we could have that argument, but Wan'Dale's not going anywhere, so where does it fit? Whatever we think of Jalen Hyatt, they're going to give him one last chance. It's the same reaction I had with the Gabe Davis stuff, which is, where is he fitting in? Because once you become a fourth or fifth receiver on a football team, you better be able to run and gun on special teams, play kick coverage, play all of that stuff, because there's simply not enough roster spots. And oh, by the way, they've really tried to bring back the kickoff in the NFL. You need those guys to play special teams. You just do. It's why an Amir Smith-Marset is going to be on this team, both as a return man and maybe somebody that guns it down on special teams. Okay, it's why Bryce Ford-Wheaton was on this team last year. You're not putting an old Odell Beckham Jr. at the back of the depth chart. So I was relieved to see that shot down. I do think I understand why Odell wants to kind of finish his career where it started, and it's good that he's grown up and matured and he has that nostalgia. I did find that picture kind of funny, looking at MetLife Stadium like it was some kind of awesome venue, which was funny to me. But Bryce, look, I mean, the Odell thing is just so long gone and dead that I'm happy it had cold water poured on it.
It's like pick-me energy. It screams desperation. The one thing it reminds me of in like a separate sport is Isaiah Thomas, not the Pistons Isaiah Thomas, the 5'9" Isaiah Thomas, a guy whose career is obviously went. I'm not going to say a downward spiral, but it kind of was a downward spiral, being a potential all-NBA player for the Celtics. Then he's out of the league just a few years later, and now he's, hey, everyone sign me. Look at me. Like, every single time that there is an injury or something, he's on Twitter saying, hey, why don't you sign? Same thing here with Odell Beckham Jr. He's 32, turning 33 next season. Why, if no other team is interested in him, why the hell would the Giants be? So I think he's trying to appeal to the fan. He's trying to win over their favor and trying to get them. And listen, it's not really possible where a fan base could bully a front office to sign a player that old. Like, listen, if it's within the realm of possibility, within reason, that maybe they would, but it's out of the question. The guy's 32, turning 33. It makes zero sense. Yep. Good riddance that these rumors have been shot down.
Okay, and last but not least, Bryce doesn't know this is coming, but I'm paying off something that we talked about on the Evan and Tiki program on WFAN, also available free on the Audacy app from 2 to 6:30 Eastern every single day. Bryce, Evan Roberts has a theory, and he asked me if I would bring it up on One Giant Step. So I'm going to bring it up on One Giant Step. I actually tweeted this as well. If I were to tell you right now on July 1st, 2025, that the end result of this season in the NFL is that we enter 2026 with Mike Tomlin coaching the New York Giants, are you signing for that now or are you not?
I'm signing for it. I think.
Wow.
I think Mike Tomlin. Listen, it would be bittersweet, because if you accept that possibility, you're accepting the fact that the Giants season went to what. You're accepting the fact that everything turned out terribly, that the Giants won 4 games. I think 3 or 4 games would mean the end of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And I don't know if at this point the leash should be long enough for Joe Schoen as compared to Brian Daboll, where Joe Schoen would keep his job and he'd be the one hiring Mike Tomlin. So I'd obviously have to see who the GM would be in that case. I think Joe Schoen has now killed 2 drafts in a row. Obviously, we haven't seen these guys go out there and play, but on paper, it looks like an amazing draft. I want to keep Joe Schoen. I don't want him to leave. I don't want him to get fired based off what could be a bad season, Shaun. I think I'd sign up for that, considering the fact that Mike Tomlin is one of the most consistent coaches in NFL history. I understand, it's always 9-8. It's always slightly above 500. Look at the talent he's had since Big Ben, since the prime of Big Ben. Look at his quarterbacks. Look at all the talent that he's had at receiver. Look at his offensive lines. Like, with better talent, especially on the defensive end, and with the solid quarterback, if Jackson Dart turns out to be that guy, I'd gladly take that right now. 100%. Where were you on that? I didn't see your tweet.
My reaction on the air was no, and I'll tell you why. I think if you're gonna end up going down the fire Brian Daboll rabbit hole, to me, there's only two guys I'd want to hire on this job where I wouldn't say that would be Mike Tomlin, it'd be Sean McVay. Those would be the two. So from that standpoint, yeah. The reason I'm not signing for it is, though, it has nothing to do with whether it's a good or a bad season, but my ultimate rooting interest is going to be not having a brand new coaching staff in here in year 2 of Jackson Dart. Like, now that they've taken Jackson Dart, it doesn't mean that the team should go 1-15 or 1-16 and then just hand Brian Daboll the job. But I want Jackson Dart to work. We used a first-round pick on him, and we used the first-round pick on him because the head coach wanted him. So I think this is going to be a very complicated Giants season in terms of what the organization thinks and what fans and reporters think the Giants should do, because I actually think there's going to be a very big difference. I don't think the Giants are going to be in some rush to fire Brian Daboll this year because of the Jackson Dart stuff. No matter.
Wait. Let me just add this. The hypothetical relies on the Giants being terrible, because if Mike Tomlin was the coach next year, that means the Giants went 2-15.
No, I agree.
In that case, hasta la vista, get lost.
Right, but that's why. But that's why I'm not signing for it, because
you don't want a terrible season. You don't want it to go to what.
Because I think that there's some people out there go, oh, they don't make the playoffs, they don't win 9 games, they're going to get fired. That's not what's going to happen here. I think there's a path to the Giants winning 5-6 games.
Yeah, they'll come back. 100%.
And they'll come back because
they're going to go 2-15.
At some point, if you're that bad early on, they're going to go to Jackson Dart. And then, you look at that Eli Manning rookie year, they didn't win a game until the last game of the year, and it gave you some hope for optimism. They could beat the Raiders the second to last week of the year and beat Dallas, who could be dead that last week of the year. And suddenly that gets them from 4 wins to 6 wins, and Jackson Dart looks the part. Is John Mara really going to look at that situation with Daboll and go, well, we finally saw something these last 2 weeks. Dart took a beating. Yeah, you're going to want to pull the plug and stunt that growth on a first-round pick. So that's why, yes, it's a hypothetical. But to do that, it means they won 2 games. By the time they started Dart, you saw no growth. And I think the organization is going backwards. And also, Mike Tomlin, not exactly a gem for developing quarterbacks either. So don't get me wrong. I'll take Mike Tomlin as my head coach, but I'm not signing for that today because I think there's too many variables that would lead to that I think would be putting the organization even further backwards, which is hard to imagine.
No, okay. I completely understand that. That's definitely the downside of it, but Mike Tomlin is consensusly known as the top 5 coach in the NFL, and I think anyone would want him to be the coach, no matter what happens.
So if Evan Roberts is listening, I hope he's happy. We did bring it up here on One Giant Step. He wanted the pulse of the Giant Nation. So tweet at me, at Shaun Morash, at Bryce Gelman. And we get another week holding out a tease of Bryce's surprise as the 10th ranked Giant at the end of the year.
We should keep dragging it until the first week of the season. Instead of doing a preview for the first game, you know what? We're gonna do this finally. That's what you're gonna get.
This is summer football podcasting, man. So keep downloading, subscribing. You're going to get that. Unless there's some kind of wacky trade next week, you're going to get that next week in the recap after the 4th of July. So download, subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. Thanks for tuning into the Darren Waller is traded episode, something I never thought I'd be saying for the rest of my tenure in sports media. But that has happened. The Giants have traded Darren Waller and gotten a 6th-round pick out of it from the Miami Dolphins. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a happy 4th of July.